October 14, 1943. 25,000 feet above Germany, Staff Sergeant Michael Romano crouches in the cramped tail section of his B-17, hands gripping twin 50-caliber machine guns that weigh more than he does. Through the small plexiglass window, he watches a Focke-Wulf 190 positioning for an attack run. 6 o'clock low, the bomber's most vulnerable angle. Romano squints through his ring and bead sight. The primitive aiming system, essentially two metal posts he must align with his target, offers no compensation for speed, no calculation for deflection, no help whatsoever as both aircraft hurtle through the sky at combined closing speeds exceeding 500 miles per hour. He fires. Tracers arc harmlessly behind the diving fighter. The FW-190's cannons flash. 20mm shells tear through aluminum like tissue paper. This scene repeats itself 291 times today across the 2nd Schweinfurt raid. The 8th Air Force dispatches 291 B-17 flying fortresses deep into Germany without fighter escort. By nightfall, 60 bombers, more than 20% of the attacking force, will be shot down. Another 138 return, so badly damaged they'll never fly again. 600 American airmen are dead. The mathematics are brutal and unsustainable. At this rate, no bomber crew will statistically survive their required 25 missions. Post-mission analysis reveals the grim truth. Tail gunners, supposedly the bomber's last line of defense against the preferred German attack angle, achieve hit rates below 8%. Fighter pilots need merely attack from the rear, endure a few seconds of inaccurate return fire, and methodically destroy America's billion-dollar strategic bombing campaign one fortress at a time. Senior commanders gather at 8th Air Force headquarters in High Wycombe, England. The defensive armament supposed to make the B-7 a flying fortress has failed catastrophically. Without a solution, daylight precision bombing, the entire strategic doctrine faces cancellation. What these commanders don't know is that at that very moment, on a cold, hard stand at Bassingbourn Airfield, a 22-year-old tail gunner with barely a high school education is sketching a design in his logbook that violates multiple Army Air Forces regulations, a design that will be called mechanically impossible by weapons engineers, a design that will triple tail gun accuracy and save thousands of American lives. This is the story of the innovation they tried to ban and the gunner who refused to stop. To understand why Romano's innovation proved so revolutionary, you must first understand the impossible problem tail gunners faced in 1943. The B-17 Flying Fortress enters combat with a defensive philosophy borrowed from naval warfare. Bristling with enough machine guns to create overlapping fields of fire, the bombers theoretically protect themselves through sheer volume of lead. Army Air Force's promotional materials call it a flying battleship. Reality proves brutally different. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano reports to Bassingbourn Airfield, England, in August 1943 as a replacement tail gunner for the 91st Bomb Group. He's a former factory worker from Pittsburgh, no college degree, no engineering background, barely 19 years old when he enlists. The Army trains him for 6 weeks how to clear jams, estimate range, and pray his shots connect. His assigned position, the tail gunner station, is barely larger than a coffin. He must kneel on a bicycle seat, feet braced against the aircraft structure, hands wrestling 84B Browning M2 machine guns through a cramped field of fire. The guns pivot on a simple yoke mount. His aiming system consists of a ring and bead sight, a metal circle with a post at the front, like sights on a frontier rifle. To hit a diving fighter, Romano must estimate the target's speed relative to his own aircraft, calculate deflection angle, where to aim ahead of the target, compensate for bullet drop over distance, execute all calculations while wearing bulky gloves in 40,000 feet of temperatures, fire before the German pilot's cannons can pierce a scum. Peacetime aerial gunnery schools attempt the same shots under controlled conditions. Their hit rates barely exceed 12%. In combat, stressed, oxygen-deprived, and under fire, actual hit rates plummet to 6 and 8%. The Luftwaffe recognizes this vulnerability immediately. German fighter tactics evolved throughout 1943, attack from 6 o'clock level or low, except 15-20 seconds of inaccurate tailgun fire close to 200 yards, and unleash devastating 20mm cannon strikes. Luftwaffe after-action reports describe B-7 tail positions as marginally dangerous, accuracy insufficient to deter attacks. August 17, 1943, the first Schweinfurt raid, 60 bombers lost. October 8, 1943, Bremen raid, 30 bombers lost. October 10, 1943, Münster raid, 30 bombers lost. The 8th Air Force hemorrhages bombers faster than factories can replace them. General Henry Hap Arnold, commanding general of the Army Air Forces, receives casualty reports in Washington and questions whether daylight bombing remains viable.
Engineers propose solutions: more guns, bigger caliber, powered turrets. Boeing's Cheyenne Modification Center begins designing an improved tail turret, but development timelines stretch into 1944. Powered turret prototypes exist, but installation requires removing the entire tail section, a months-long factory modification impossible to implement on bombers already in England. Meanwhile, men die. Michael Romano flies his first combat mission on August 19, 1943, Gilze Ridgian Airfield, Netherlands. He fires 480 rounds at 3 attacking FW-190s. He believes he scores hits. Gun camera footage reviewed later reveals every tracer passed harmlessly behind the targets. The fighters destroyed 2 bombers in his formation. After his third mission, Romano stays on the hardstand after landing, staring at his guns. His hands shake, not from fear, but from the physical exhaustion of manhandling 84-pound weapons through sustained fire while kneeling at altitude. That night, he sketches his first design concept. The problem isn't the gun, he realizes. It's not even the mount. It's that tail gunners fire blind, chasing targets they cannot properly track, aiming at points in space they cannot accurately predict. What Romano needs is something the Army Air Forces hasn't provided: a way to see where his bullets will actually go before he pulls the trigger. He needs a reflector sight. But the tail position's cramped quarters make standard reflector installation impossible unless someone breaks the jerry-rigged combination of reflective surfaces and improvised aiming references. But it might work. Romano spends 3 hours that night sketching designs, measuring angles, calculating sight lines with a carpenter's protractor salvaged from the base machine shop. By dawn, he has detailed drawings of a mirror-assisted reflector sight system that requires no powered components, no complex installation, and no factory modification. He also has a problem. His design violates Army Air Force's Technical Order ZO-120-EG-2, which prohibits unauthorized modifications to defensive armament. Installation without approval could result in court-martial. Romano decides he doesn't care. Romano finds his co-conspirator in an unlikely place, the base sheet metal shop. Technical Sergeant Frank Kellerman, a 38-year-old aircraft mechanic from Detroit, served in the Civilian Conservation Corps during the Depression, building bridges and repairing equipment with whatever materials he could scavenge. When Romano approaches him on October 7th with sketches and a request for off-the-books fabrication work, Kellerman studies the drawings for less than 5 minutes. "This is illegal," Kellerman says flatly. Romano nods. "Yes, Sergeant. You're asking me to modify defensive armament without engineering approval, which violates about 6 different technical orders." "Yes, Sergeant." Kellerman looks up from the drawings. "When do you fly again?" "Tomorrow, Münster." "Then we better work fast." They begin after midnight in a corner of the maintenance hangar, using scrap materials Kellerman has unofficially requisitioned. The base components come from salvaged aircraft parts: curved mirrors from damaged navigation equipment, plexiglass sheets from shattered canopy sections, aluminum brackets from written-off airframes. The reflector sight itself, the crucial component, comes from a wrecked P-47 Thunderbolt fighter. Kellerman removes the undamaged gunsight assembly, designed for nose-mounted installation, and re-engineers the mounting brackets to fit the tail gunner's cramped position. The mirror system proves more challenging. Romano wants 3 small convex mirrors positioned at angles that provide peripheral vision of his tracer paths without obstructing his forward view. Kellerman fabricates adjustable brackets using sheet aluminum and ball socket joints from control surface linkages. They work through the night, fitting components, testing sight lines, making adjustments. At 0430 hours, Kellerman installs the complete assembly in Romano's aircraft, a B-17G designated knockout dropper. While the flight line sleeps, the installation is crude. Brackets attach with standard aircraft bolts, mirrors affix using safety wire. The reflector sight mounts to the gun yoke via a welded bracket that would horrify Boeing engineers. Holbrook doesn't inspect the tail section before takeoff. The group commander doesn't know, the squadron armament officer doesn't know. They launch for Munster at SO 7:30 hours. Over Germany at 10:15 hours, a Bf-109 begins its attack run, 6 o'clock, low, closing fast. Romano swivels his guns, squints through the new reflector sight. The illuminated reticle floats in his field of vision, overlaying the target. In his peripheral vision, the mirrors show his gun barrel's alignment angles, instant feedback about where his weapons point. He fires a 3-second burst. The tracer pattern visible in the mirrors shows him he's shooting behind the target. He adjusts, leading the fighter by the reticle's diameter. Fires again. This time, the tracers and the target converge. The Bf-109's engine explodes. The fighter rolls inverted and spins toward Earth, trailing black smoke. Romano stares at his guns, then at the mirrors, then back at the empty sky where the fighter flew seconds before. "Holy," he whispers into his oxygen mask. "It works." Romano lands at 13:40 hours with one confirmed kill, his first. The celebration lasts exactly 20 minutes. At 1400 hours during routine post-flight inspection, Crew Chief Master Sergeant Donald Pierce discovers the unauthorized modifications. Pierce immediately reports to the squadron armament officer, Captain Richard Voss, who arrives at the hard stand carrying a clipboard and an expression of barely contained fury. "Sergeant Romano," Voss says, voice tight with military precision, "would you care to explain the unauthorized equipment installed in your gun position?" Romano stands at attention. "Sir, I installed an improved sighting system." "You installed what?" Voss voice Luftwaffe. Voss jabs a finger toward the tail section. "That equipment is not Army Air Force's standard. It's not Boeing approved. It hasn't undergone testing protocols. Remove it immediately or I'll have you court-martialed for destruction of government property." Romano's pilot, Lieutenant Holbrook, steps forward. "Captain, my tail gunner got his first kill today using that sight. Maybe we should—" "Your opinion is noted, Lieutenant." Voss cuts him off. "The modification will be removed. That's final." Word spreads through the 91st Bomb Group like wildfire. By evening mess, every gunner on base knows about Romano's illegal mirror sight and his first kill. Opinions divide sharply. Veteran gunners gather around Romano's table, firing questions. How difficult is installation? What's the field of view? Can the mirrors withstand slipstream stress at 200 meters? But the engineering officers and senior maintenance staff react with alarm. Captain Theodore Morrison, the group's assistant armament officer, convenes an emergency meeting on October 11th. 14 officers attend. The tone is hostile. "Gentlemen," Morrison begins, "we have a discipline problem. A sergeant has performed unauthorized modifications using salvaged components of unknown provenance. This sets a dangerous precedent. If every enlisted man decides to re-engineer his weapon system based on personal preference," the room erupts. "With respect, sir, that's absurd." Major William Calhoun, operations officer, stands. "Romano shot down an enemy fighter using this system. Our tail gunners currently achieve 8% hit rates. If his modification improves that even marginally—" "Marginally?" Morrison's face reddens. "Major, we have no data, no testing. One successful engagement doesn't validate." "Then test it," Calhoun fires back. "Put Romano up tomorrow with the modification installed. Gun cameras will capture objective data. If it doesn't work, remove it. If it does work, maybe we should be installing these systems instead of court-martialing the man who invented them." The argument intensifies. Engineers cite safety concerns. Combat officers cite casualty rates. The meeting devolves into shouting. At 2,000 hours, the dispute reaches Colonel Stanley Ray, commanding officer of the 91st Bomb Group. Ray served as a bomber pilot in the First World War. He's 53 years old, a career officer with a reputation for both discipline and pragmatism. He listens to the arguments from both sides for 90 minutes without interrupting. Finally, he speaks. "How many bombers did we lose last week?" Silence. "Captain Morrison, I asked you a question." 17, sir. 17 B-17s from this group alone." "And how many fighters did our tail gunners shoot down?" Fortsworth, October 12, 1943. Romano flies his 4th combat mission with the modified sight system and gun cameras recording every moment. The 8th Air Force dispatches 236 B-7s against submarine construction facilities. Luftwaffe fighter wings scramble 250 interceptors. At 11:23 hours over the German coast, the attacks begin.
A Focke-Wulf 190 dives from 7,000 high. Romano tracks it through the reflector sight, the illuminated reticle providing instantaneous aim point reference. His peripheral vision captures the mirror images, showing his gun alignment. He fires a 4-second burst, adjusting in real time as tracer reflections show him his bullet path. The FW-190's wing root erupts in flames. The fighter breaks off, trailing smoke. 11:47 hours, a Bf-109 approaches from 6,000 level, the classic tail attack profile. Romano centers the reticle, checks his mirror feedback, fires. The 109's canopy shatters. The fighter rolls inverted and dives away. Gun camera footage captures both engagements in detail. Romano returns to Basingorn with 2 confirmed kills and 1 probable. His total ammunition expenditure, 380 rounds. That's 190 rounds per kill, a dramatic improvement over the typical 2,800 rounds per kill averaged by conventional tail gunners.